OK, so we're leading today on the row over claims of Islamophobia in the Conservative Party, and that deepens today.
According to the Telegraph newspaper, they've seen leaked WhatsApp messages from some Tory MPs who've raised concerns over Mr Anderson's suspension.
MPs fear they could see a revolt from voters who will now move to the Reform Party after being flooded with supportive messages on Lee Anderson.
However, Baroness Saeed Varsi, a former party chairwoman and the first Muslim cabinet member, now appear in the House of Lords, has accused the Conservatives of being dragged into the gutter as she criticises the party's response to this latest crisis.
OK, so what about this whole issue? We want to know your views on this this morning. Is it getting out of control, or has Number 10 taken the correct course of action?
Well, let's discuss all of this with former advisor to Michael Gove, Charlie Rowley, and the former Labour advisor, Mike Buckley. Good morning to both of you.
Morning.
First of all, to you, Charlie, as a sort of Conservative representative, I suppose, here this morning. We saw Oliver Dowden, the Deputy Prime Minister, yesterday, saying that Lee Anderson had the whip removed not because of what he said, but because he refused to apologise for it. Was he right to say that?
Yes, he should have been given the opportunity. Well, he was given the opportunity to apologise, and he should have taken that opportunity. And if he was able to clarify what he meant by what he was trying to say, then he should have done so. But he failed to do so and didn't feel he needed to. The comments were clearly clumsy at best. For whatever the failings of Sadiq Khan, of which there are plenty, but I won't sort of go into those unnecessarily just yet. But the idea that the Mayor of London is being led by or in cahoots with extremists and fundamentalists is just simply not right. So the opportunity...
How do you know it's not right?
Well,
you don't. You have an opinion. You say, this doesn't seem like right, and if we were all fair-minded, we wouldn't say this sort of thing. My point about Lee Anderson, I'm not in the business of defending him or anything else, but I have not seen one interview since this all broke out where someone has looked into the fact, has he got a point?
Well, I think there's clearly a sentiment shared across the country with what Lee was saying. There's clearly failings on behalf of the Mayor of London. So when you see things like From the River to the Sea broadcast and plastered across not just any old building, but Parliament, which does incite and stoke community tensions, when that is a phrase that does cause concern for particularly the Israeli community and the Jewish community in this country, failing to act on things like that does sit with the Mayor of London and the Metropolitan Police, and he has failed fundamentally to do that. But do I think the Mayor of London, or does anybody think that the Mayor of London is being led by Islamic extremists? No, I don't think that is correct, and that's why I think Lee...
He didn't exactly say that. He said there was too strong an influence, and that Khan was relying too much on this. Do we know, and I just want to turn to Mike Buckley, former Labour advisor on this one, do we know that to be true? Are you both anti-Lee Anderson on this one?
I mean, I'm obviously anti-Lee Anderson on this one. I mean, what he said was that Sadiq and the capital were being controlled by Islamic extremists. There's zero evidence for that. No evidence for that at all. I mean, it was a racist comment. And for once, Richardson did the right thing by removing the whip. Now, admittedly, some Conservative MPs in their WhatsApp thread were having a panic because they've had probably about 3 emails each from constituents saying we're not going to vote for you anymore. But it doesn't take anything away from the fact that the comments were racist.
That it might be wrong. But I don't get the fact that it's necessarily racist. Let's just say we were all sitting in Dubai and there was some sort of huge Christian influence comes to fore in the government of Dubai. There would be outroar. It doesn't make it... what did you say it was there?
But the comments would need to bear some relation to reality, and in this instance they don't. And it's also a kind of classic, anti-Islamic thing to say, as evidenced by the fact that Suella Braverman said basically the same thing about the whole country. What Rishi Sunak hasn't answered, or Oliver Dowden or anybody else, is why Lee Anderson had the whip removed, but Suella Braverman has not, when the comments she made were just as bad about the whole country.
What did she say? The argument... I'm not up to date.
She said that the Islamists and the extremists and the Zionists were in control of the whole of the UK. I mean, clearly ludicrous comments from a woman desperate to get herself back in the newspapers because she wants to be the next Conservative Party leader. I mean, this is all about people positioning to become the next Conservative Party leader. Possibly not Lee Anderson. Presumably he isn't deluded enough to think that he could be the next Conservative Party leader. And obviously, as you were saying, he decided not to apologise and so has lost the whip. Rightly so.
And look, so many Muslims deeply offended by what he said. And, you know, Baroness Varsi pointing out that actually anti-Muslim racism is being used as an electoral campaigning tool now, and that's why she thinks the party's been dragged into the gutter. And she says sensible people are leaving the party. Has she got a point?
I don't think she has. Saeed Varsi pops up every now and again and will make this case. But, look, Sajid Javid was the first one to sort of call out Lee Anderson for the comments that he made. I mean, let's sort of, taking a step back, there is a sentiment shared by what Lee was trying to say. There are cultural differences in this country. There are people who are going out onto the streets of London week after week. They are preaching hate. We see it in our society. We see it in communities. You take the Rochdale grooming gangs, for example. It is a particular culture. It's a particular group of people where I think local communities have felt for too long they haven't been able to call out things that go wrong because of cultural or religious differences or whatever. And I think that's the sentiment that Lee was trying to say. It's what Suella was trying to articulate. But what Suella did, in comparison to what Lee did, is that Suella didn't say that the Mayor of London or any individual is in the pocket of or being led by extremists or Islamic extremists, which isn't correct. But there has to be a conversation.
What do you think of the Mayor of London? Who do you think is leading the Mayor of London and what his agendas are and if he stands much of a chance of winning the next election?
Well, I don't think anybody's leading the Mayor of London. In fact, the Mayor of London just isn't leading. And I think, look, there isn't the housing in London, crime is up, he's slapped on this ULEZ charge for hard-working people that wanted to sort of go about their day-to-day. We're not seeing the progress that we need to in London. He has fundamentally failed. There are so many issues with this Mayor of London. But to suggest that he is, being led by, extremists or Islamists in any way is just simply not right. There are lots of failings of the Mayor of London.
Mike, here's the thing, though. I worry that a lot of people will latch on to this because it suits them. They want to hear this. They want to have a reason not to like Sadiq Khan.
I mean, I will just say I think Sadiq's done a very good job in very difficult circumstances. But you're right, there has, since he became elected, there's been an agenda out there against him, in part because he is a Muslim man. But I think he's done an incredible job, as I say, in very, very difficult circumstances. And it's the job of all politicians of any party to stand up against racism in all its forms. And separating out one from another doesn't do the country any good, and it certainly doesn't do any of these minorities any good either.
Was the Prime Minister wrong not to call this Islamophobia? And this,
yes, he was. He was a coward.
I mean, if a Jew had come out, if there had been an anti-Jewish comment, would they have been treated in the same way if it had been anti-Semitic comments as opposed to Islamophobic?
Well, I think actions speak louder than words, and the Prime Minister has acted, and the whip has been
But the whip's been removed because he didn't apologise, not because of what he said. If you apologise for being anti-Semitic, would you be able to stay within the Conservative Party? I suspect not.
Well, I don't think, if you're any kind of comment that's inappropriate or racist, you wouldn't be allowed. But I think what the apology that was asked of Lee was to probably clarify his comments because, as I say, there is clearly, as you were just talking about in the WhatsApp groups with Red Wall MPs, with your viewers. I've been here over the weekend and people have been emailing and texting in to say that they understand the sentiment of what Lee was trying to say. So it's not as if, he's just come out of the woodwork and caused chaos unnecessarily so. There is a sentiment shared. We have to have, as a public, a conversation about cultural issues. We have to have a conversation about what's going on every weekend. The hate speech that is out on the streets of London, which Suella has called out before. We have to have a conversation about that. But when you're having a conversation about it, especially if you're a politician, language is so important, and Lee didn't get the right language over the weekend, which is why the whip has been withdrawn, because he failed to apologise.
Yeah, Charlie, hear totally what you're saying. What I don't think is that neither you or Mike are totally speaking on behalf of the great British public and throughout the country. And obviously, whether we all like it or not, Lee Anderson will have a following. There will be people who will believe what he's saying and they will echo what he's saying. And we want to hear from you this morning if you feel you are being represented, if London-based television is slightly lefty-leaning.